Hello, welcome to Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and this is Richard. So I have a 25-foot piece of cordage. I have 4 graphite rods and a yardstick. I am going to measure off 106 feet, and I will get right back with you. I've got it marked, and from this marker to that marker, there we go, is 106 paces, or I'm sorry, 106 feet, which for me is 20 paces. Alright, so we're going to make it even with the edge of this rest area thing here. And let's put some chalk down. Alright, now this is only temporary. I will get some spray paint. And I will be marking this, but for right now, this will work. So there's the starting spot. And we got the finishing spot down there. So there we go. We have the pace marked out. I don't need to go any further than that. 106 feet, no matter what your pace count is as far as you really need to go to figure out what your entire pace count will be, as long as you stay consistent. You know, you always tend to slow down the longer you go. That's just it's just a natural thing. But pacing out those first 20 steps, well, for me 20 steps, but pacing out the first 106 feet, you just take that and times it by 5, and that will give you the first top 5 beads. You just take that number and divide it by 5, and that'll give you each top bead, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And once you get those, all you have to do is transfer the 5th number to the first bottom bead and just double it each time. And well, you take that number plus whatever the pace count is. You know what? Let's say for me it's 20. So you take the first bottom bead is 20, the second one is 40. Then it's 60, then it's 80, so you just progress that way. So that will give you your entire pace count. So there we go, that's how you do it. But we are going to hold a class, and I will be teaching, we will be making pace beads, and then we will be going through and using pace beads. We will find everybody's pace count, and that will be the first class. I don't think we'll get past that on the first class. I do want to get into mapping and navigation and compass work and things to that nature. But that's going to be the first class. We're gonna work these pace beads. So thank you guys for watching Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft. Enjoy the outdoors, even if it's just your own backyard. Hello, welcome to Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and this is Richard. So what I have setting up here is the math that we are going to use to do our ranger beads. Now, if you notice that it turns out to 5,283 feet, and I'm 3 feet over, the biggest reason why I did that was that my pace count, although is accurate, I will be adjusting my steps from this to that. So I added the 3 feet so that when I did my pace count over a mile, it would even out and it would help me out. So This does actually go 3 feet over, but what's 3 feet, really, honestly? But if you have issues with that 3 feet, just keep in account that the longer you go, the shorter your strides are going to be, and that 3 feet will be made up over a distance if you have a problem with that. So real quick, I'm going to tell you how I came about this, and then you can decide whether or not you like it and you want to use this as well. Now, this is the top beads, the top 5 beads, and here are the bottom beads as far as distance, as far as feet go. When you're looking for your pace, all you have to do is mark out 106 feet and find out what your pace is for that. Now, we'll get into what mine is later, and I'll put the steps over here, how many steps I have to take, but it's 20 for me. So I have to take 20 steps to reach 106 feet. Now, once you take all of this here, what you're going to do is, this is 20. So 106 plus 106 is 212. 212 plus 106 is 316 and a half, and it just goes on and on and on until you get down to the 5th bead, which is 528.3 feet. That transfers up to the bottom beads, and then again 528.3 plus 528.3, then you take that number plus 528.3, and you just keep going down until you get to 5,283 feet. Now, when you pace out this 106, and we will do that, but my pace count comes out to 20. So real quick, let's see, what color should we use? Let's try purple. Let's see if purple will work. There we go. So that takes 20 paces for me. So if you double that, we have 40, 60, 80, and then 100. So at 528.3 feet, that takes me 100 steps to reach 528.3. That are my top beads. Now I transfer that number to the bottom beads, and this becomes 100 steps. So once I get my 5 beads at 100, I readjust my top beads and I raise one of my bottom beads. Then I go back over here and I do another 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And once I hit 100, the second time, it goes into my second bead, which is 200 steps. That continues all the way down here until I get to 1,000 steps, and that's a mile. So there's 1 mile. So this is the quickest and easiest way to write down your pace. So just take a scrap piece of paper, write down the white numbers on these blue dots, and I didn't make my blue dots here, but make your blue dots for all these, for each bead, and copy down the white numbers. Now, all you got to do is find out what your pace count is for 106 feet. I suggest that you do that several times before you decide on an actual count. Do it 4, 5, 6 times, and if the numbers come up differently, average them. Eventually you will find exactly what your pace count is. Like I said, mine is 20 steps. And then you just go 20 plus, well, whatever your pace count is, plus itself will give you the second one. And then your third one is whatever the second one is, plus 20. And it just goes down until you get your bottom number here on your 5th one. Transfer that up to the bottom beads. And again, same thing down there. So top beads, bottom beads, feet, and then steps. All right, so here we are with meters. So 19.3, which is basically 19. Got 12.6, which could be 13 steps. And what we do is just go, again, 39.7 meters. Actually could be 40 meters if you want to round it up. 25.2, again, 25 steps. 60 meters, 80, and then 99.7, which is basically 100 meters. 100 meters is 63 steps. Again, I take that 63 steps, move it up to the top, and that gives me 100 meters. Then I go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1,000 meters, which is 630 steps. So 630 steps equals 1,000 meters. So we have 1,000 meters, which is 630 steps, which is 1 kilometer. So if I want to use kilometers and meters instead of feet and miles, I also have a chart for that. Now, you ask yourself, okay, I have all these numbers, but how do I get meters and yards and everything else? So for me, 1 step equals 5.3 feet. 2 steps will be 10.6, and it just keeps going. So you just take 5.3 plus 5.3 and whatever that is, which is 10.6 plus 5.3, and that will tell you each individual step how much distance you're taking. Now, if you want to get yards, all you do is you take your feet and you divide it by 3, and that will tell you how many yards that you have gone. If you want to find meters, you just take your distance by feet and you times it by 0.30. And that will tell you in meters. So that's all the math you really need to get your pace count. And once you do that, you will be able to walk. Now this is set on even, open ground, unencumbered. So I'm not carrying any large rucks. I'm not carrying any large weight. I'm not going up and down hills. This is my pace at a smooth walk with no encumbrance whatsoever. Once you start getting into weighing yourself down with gear, your pace is going to get slower. Once you go larger distances, your pace will slow down. If you are having to deal with obstacles or uneven ground, again, your pace will be affected. All of that stuff will affect your pace, but through time, and doing this, you will understand and learn how much you generally are slowed down by each individual encumbrance or path problem. So this is your pace count. This is how you do it. It's very simple once you get it down. I do suggest that you keep a notebook that has all of this information in it and that has your personal pace count. I have learned through my travels and my adventures that if you don't use this for a while, you will, well, for me, I will lose memory of it. When I was in Wyoming, as an example, I was doing pace count, and as a matter of fact, I was using the beads backwards, and I was using the bottom beads before I used the top beads, and I was actually going twice as far as I thought I was going at the time until I figured out what I was doing was wrong. So anyway, this is one way that I use my pace beads. There are several different ways that you can use pace beads, and I will get to that in the next section. But for now, that is how you develop your pace beads. So using this diagram here, I'm going to show you how I write down distances for my pace count. So if I want to keep in mind and record a distance to an object or a place, then I can do that using this simple little diagram that I've got here. So this one here is set for the miles that I travel. This one here is the top beads. This one is the bottom beads. And this is steps on the top beads. So when I want to mark something down, and let's say that I go 1 mile, I go 4 top beads, 3 bottom beads, but I take 6 steps on the top bead for the next top bead. So this is how I record it. It'll be 1 4/3 with a 6 beside the 4. So that will show me that I go 1 mile, I do 3 bottom bead steps, which for me would be 300 steps. I take 4 top bead steps, which is 80 steps. And then I take an additional 6 steps on the next bead, the next top bead count. And that will show me where I need to be. Now, I don't know of anybody that does this. I've not seen it, and I actually looked on YouTube to see if somebody was actually using this as a way to record positioning using paste beads. I have not seen any videos, and I've never heard of anybody doing this. Something in a dream, came to me in a dream, but this is how I keep track of locations when I'm trying to find something, and I get, right here is how I get to it. So I know that it's 1 mile, 4 top beads, 3 bottom beads, and 6 steps. Now that doesn't give me directions. If I need directions and all that, I have to use a compass, but this gives me the distance, and then I can do other things to describe the overall travel to it. I just know that whatever I'm looking for is 1 mile, which is 1,000 steps. Then I'll take an additional 300 steps, and this will be 80 steps, and then 6 steps extra. So that's a lot of steps. But I know that's how many steps I have to take to get to whatever I'm looking for on this here. So this is how I keep track of pace count when I'm looking for something. So keep that in mind if you want to use that. This is something, like I said, I'm not claiming that I invented this, although it came to me without any added influence. I've never seen anybody do this, so I don't know. Has anybody ever seen anybody do paste beads where they keep track of things like this? I haven't. I've looked, I haven't seen it. But anyway, this is how I do it. So when we're going to discuss how to write down our movements, we are going to have to be able to start using the compass, and we will need north, south, east, and west. So north is 0 degrees, south 180 degrees, east will be 90 degrees, and west is 270 degrees. Now, being that I was artillery in the Army, I tended to get accustomed to mils rather than degrees. Mils are much more precise, but the numbers are larger. So north, even though it's 0 degrees, it's 6,400 mils. Now you can just take off the 2 zeros at the end and just use 64. 3,200 for south, 1,600 for east, and 4,800 for the west. As well, you have 32, 16, and 48. Now, the key to this is staying consistent with what you're using. Now, if you are going to use the degrees when you are mapping out something, then stick to using degrees. If you're going to be using mils, then stick to using mils. One thing you don't want to do is jump back and forth, and you start out with degrees and you're at, say, 180 degrees or 90. We'll use 90 since it's a double digit. You're at 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden you start transferring back over to mils, and what happens, you don't know whether that 90 is for mils or whether it's for degrees. So if you're going to use one of these systems, make sure that you pick one and stick with it. Again, I prefer the mils but you can use degrees if you want, and we will discuss here in a moment how to incorporate that in our distancing. So here we go again. North, 0 degrees, 6,400 mils. South, 180 degrees, 3,200 mils. East, 90 degrees, 1,600 mils. And we have west, 270 degrees at 4,800 mils. Here is something else that I add to my directions when I am marking something. I use little codes and symbols that I keep track of in a little notebook. Most of these I've got memorized at this point, so I know exactly what I'm talking about for myself. But as an example, DH with arrows going down means downhill. UH arrows up, uphill. I have an RD underlined for road. 2 P's underlined means a paved path. Now, up here on the downhill and uphill, sometimes counting pace downhill will just jack you up, while other times it's okay to count the pace. So the way I distinguish between whether or not I count my pace as I go down or I go up, I will either put a minus or a plus on there. So if the minus is on there, then I do not count my pace count as I go down the hill. If the plus is on there, then I will count my pace as I go down, depending on how steep the hill is, how obstructed it is, and what's in my way. If I'm going uphill and there's a lot of trees or there's a lot of rocks or something to that nature, and I don't necessarily have to keep a pace count, you'll see the little minus there, which means I'm not going to count my pace as I go up the hill. Now, if it's very specific and it's necessary for me to keep track of my pace while I'm going up that hill, and it's applicable for me to do, then I'll make sure that I put a little plus sign there so that I know that I'm counting as I go up the hill or down the hill or whatever direction I'm going. Here's 4 very simple little marks that I use on my tracking so that I know what I'm doing and where I'm going, and it's telling me something. I have tons of these. Most of the time I only come up with them when they are necessary. I don't just sit down and come up with tons of stuff unless I'm going to use it. And if I don't have something for it at the time, I will come up with something, mark it down in my book, and then that will be that. So just these 4 as examples. If I'm going down a hill, then I will, with the DH with arrows down, whether I'm going to count my pace or not is the plus or the minus. Uphill is the UH with arrows going up. RD underlined means it is a road, and a road is a man-made object. PP means a paved path. I also have, for example, I have a trail. I'll just put a T. Of course, there'll be an underline there. A trail. Now, if it's a trail that's man-made, or if it's a trail that's made by animals, that will, if it's a man-made trail, I'll put an M there for man-made. If it is an animal trail that I'm following, I'll put the A there, and then that will tell me that I have a trail that's man-made or that I have a trail that's an animal trail. And all these come in handy for me to mark things, for me to keep track of where I'm at, and for me to progress in whatever that I'm doing. So here's a few right here as examples. Again, it works for me. This is just how I've developed it. If it works for you, feel free to use it. If it doesn't, then, you know, either enjoy the video or don't enjoy the video. But if it doesn't work for you, don't use it. If you've got another system that works good for you, then use that. So let's continue on with pace beads and walking trails. So here is here's an example. Just doesn't mean anything. It's just random things that I just threw out. But this is an example of how I would write how to get somewhere. So I start at point X, and I'm trying to get to point Y. So how do I get from X to Y? And this right here tells me how I get there. So what I do is I start out at 0 degrees. Then I will go for 6 bottom beads, which is 600 paces for me. I will then go uphill. Minus says I will not be counting my pace as I go up. Once I get up the hill, I'll be going 1 top bead distance, which is 20 steps. Then I will turn at 270 degrees, where I will be proceeding for 3 top beads, which is 60 steps, plus 2 extra steps on the next bead. So 62 steps. And once I do that, I hit a paved path. So that is how I write down and share my information about where I go, how I get there, and that's how I mark things. So this is just something that I've came up with. It works for me. It's something I've been doing for a considerable amount of time. To me, it's clear and obvious what I'm doing. I can clearly see that. I can clearly read it. I can clearly understand it. And it's something that I can do over and over and over again, so I don't have to wonder where something is or how I'm going to get there. If I have this, then I know exactly how to get from X to Y, Y being the paved path and X being wherever I start. So wherever I start, my starting point, of course, has to be pretty much the same each time. So my starting point, I go 0 degrees for 6 bottom beads. I go uphill without counting my pace count. I go another 1 top bead. I turn it 270 degrees. I go for 3 top beads plus 2 steps, and I should hit a paved path. All right. So that's just that's how I do it. I hope it helps you guys out. I hope you try it. As I said, this is just something I've created. I've never seen anybody do anything like this before, and I've looked on YouTube and I've asked a few people, and no one's ever heard of this before. So just one of those things that come out of the weird dreams I have. So I hope this works for you. So let's actually sit down and look at pace beads and discuss those a little bit. We are going to discuss pace beads and small compass work here real quick. I thought about going outside and doing this, but I live in Indiana. It is December. Is it December? No, it's November. I think, yes, it's November. Sorry. I can't keep track of stuff. So it's November. It's cold, it's wet, it's nasty out there. Would it be more aesthetically pleasing if I was out in the woods doing this? Probably. But I'm at the dojo, so I'm inside, I'm warm, I can sit, we can talk. We don't have to worry about me freezing my butt off or getting soaking wet out there, just so that the video looks more natural. So anyway, first of all, here's a small Dollar Tree baggie. I love these little snack baggies from the Dollar Tree. And inside I have 15 beads and 1 piece of cordage, which is what I hand out to my students when we work on paste beads to learn to make them and everything. This is a little kit to make paste beads. So let me pull out. There we go. So here's my compass. I got a little carabiner, and then I have my paste beads. Now, as you can see, this one here, and I'm going to discuss this one here in a minute, but this has several purposes, but this right here is my pace count, my paste beads right here. So I have 5 beads on the top, and I have 10 beads on the bottom. As we've discussed, every 20 steps, I pull a top bead. When I get to 100 steps, that means I pull 1 bottom bead and I start over. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 2 bottom beads. And it just continues until I get down to the 10th bead, and that's 1 mile. Now, this way, I don't have any other beads to keep track of actual mileage, because I'm keeping track of the 20 steps and then the 100 steps here. So I have a second set of beads over here, which I keep track of miles. Now I think there's like 15 beads on here. I don't expect I'll go 15 miles in one particular setting ever, but it's possible. So then I go to this, boom, and I pop up a bead that's 1 mile. And then I can leave that alone again until I hit 2 miles, and then just pull up another bead, and that's 2 miles, and just continue. Now, that's one reason that this second stash of beads is on here. The second reason is for spares. This actually can become an entire new set of beads. Just pop off 5 on the top, 10 on the bottom, put a little knot right there. Boom! I've got another set of paste beads. But these I keep track of actual mileage and also to use as spares. So if I do my beads in that manner. Now, because I know that 100 steps for every bottom bead, if I was inclined to actually count 100 steps, 100, 200, 300, on and on and on until I got to the 10th bead, then I knew, okay, I've gone a mile. Now I can take one of the top beads, pop it up, boom, there's 1 mile. And then another 100, another 100, another 100, blah, 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 2 miles. I could do that. Now, that's another way that you can use these beads. The problem for me is, one, I know myself well enough to know that there's at least 2 very common problems with me doing it that way. One is I get too distracted and I'll forget my pace count if I count all the way to 100. I just will. And there was another one and I've already forgotten. But I will get distracted. Distraction is #1 problem for me. I'll see a squirrel, I'll see a really cool stick or rock, something will go through my head and I'll start thinking about it, whatever the purpose is, and I'll get distracted. So counting all the way to 100 is just too much for me to do because I'll get distracted, or I'll lose count. That was the other one. Or I'll lose count of where I'm at. So I prefer not to go from the bottom beads and go to 100 and then use the top beads as miles. Although that's a perfectly legitimate way of doing it, and more than welcome to do it that way if you're accustomed to counting further larger steps and you don't get distracted or lose focus as I do quite easily. So that's why I developed the way I do things is, now I've only got to count 20 steps, boom, another 20 steps, another 20 steps, you know, that way I have less chance of getting distracted and losing complete, you know, I'm at, I don't know, 97 or am I at 79? I don't know, I can't remember. So now I got to start all over. Now I'm really jacked up because I've missed about 100 steps somewhere. Or maybe I get distracted up here and I only lose about 20 steps. So if I'm going to lose steps, I'd prefer to lose smaller amount of steps than larger amount of steps. So that's why I developed the way I do my Ranger beads for the most part like this, because of my ability to be distracted and to lose focus, plain and simple. And again, the second set of beads are here so that I can keep track of miles. There's 3 miles right there. And then I can go back 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, top bead, blah, 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 until I get all the way down, boom, there's another mile, pop off another mile, and then I can go back to my smaller count. So it's just easier for me to keep track this way. And I've got an extra spare Ranger beads or paste beads here if I want. Now, as far as the compass is concerned, and we did discuss, if I can get this open, there we go. We did discuss how I keep track of things on the board back here, and it just works for me, so that's how I do things. Again, I prefer to work off of mills. Really, the only reason I do is because I was in artillery in the Army, and we always worked mills instead of degrees. So that's just how I like to do it. So anyway, I have this compass, stays with this carabiner and these two sets of beads. And this is how I keep track of how far I've gone and what direction I've gone. Now, there's plenty of other things we can discuss about this. I don't want this video to be horribly long. I'm sure that it's probably pretty long as it is because I like to ramble, as I'm doing now. So we're going to go ahead and put this back up. But again, compass, major importance. Always have a compass with you. I've learned that lesson a couple times. Always have your paste beads with you. And again, I keep these spares to also keep track of miles, but also because it gives me a second set of Ranger beads. Thank you guys for watching Bentley's Backwards Bushcraft, and enjoy the outdoors, even if it's just your own backyard.